I look into some of the things that currently happened, be it the people that write about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they write against Quran, they write against Islam, and some of them may even be Muslims. Why don't we ignore them? If they are kicked out, if they're asked to leave, if they stop writing, are our situations better? Do we have less poverty? Are there more freedom for the people? Is the situation of the masses, has it improved because we decided to fight this battle? What was the outcome of this battle? What did we win? What was in it for us? We made somebody more famous. We made them seen as heroes. We definitely made them rich. Their books went on the bestseller overnight. And what did we gain? They're more famous, their ideas are more spread, and more people are coming to support them, and more people are coming out. So we must choose our battles wisely. And when we look into the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we see that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he addressed issues, but he did not address them immediately. His silence was not an approval of the ill that was taking place, but it's all about timing. It's all about timing. Now is not the time for this. And I am not saying this because I approve of it, but now is not the time for it. There are greater battles that needs to be taken care of. Even in the deen, remember this, brothers and sisters, the teachings of Islam is not one horizontal line, but rather there is a slope where some things are important and some things are more important. Where do we get this from? The hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says, "Al-imanu bid'un wa sab'una shu'ba, a'laha la ilaha illallah wa adnaha imatatul adha 'an at-tariq." He said, faith is 70 some branches, where the highest branch of it is La ilaha illallah, and the lowest part of it is to remove harm from the path of the people. And listen to this statement, the highest and the lowest. There is a highest and then there is a lowest. To be occupied with the lowest at the expense of the highest is not acceptable. We see in the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the hadith, Aisha narrates that أول ما أنزل على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, amongst the first things that were revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam were the statements of La ilaha illallah, calling people to La ilaha illallah. And then she makes the statement and she said, فلو كان أول ما أنزل على رسول الله لا تشربوا الخمر لقالت العرب والله لا ندع شرب الخمر. Then she said, had the very first thing been, do not consume alcohol, the Arabs would have all revolted and they would have said, we will never abandon the drinking of alcohol. This is too soon. You are addressing this ill too soon. This is not the time for it. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived and he saw that evil that was taking place. He did not address it because there was a greater evil that was taking place. The point is, we must learn to choose our battles wisely. We must mature as to which battle do we want to fight and when do we want to fight it. And that is why the scholars speak about the fiqh of determining priorities. And even the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they practiced this so beautifully. There is an incident that Imam Bukhari narrates in his book, when it comes to the Babu Salati bi Mina. He said the chapter on the prayers in Mina. Now when you go to Mina, people shorten their prayers. So they went with Uthman, and when they got to Mina, Uthman decided that he was going to pray either Dhuhr or Asr, 4 rak'ahs instead of 2 rak'ahs. So some people came to him, Abdullah ibn Umar came to him and said, you know, Amir al-Mu'mineen, I have done Hajj behind the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in this particular place, I remember so vividly that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam led us to 2 rak'ahs. So please pray 2 rak'ahs. Uthman was of a different opinion, and this is not what we're discussing. He was of a different opinion, and he decided that he was going to lead the believers in 4 rak'ahs instead of 2. So everybody prayed behind him, including Ibn Umar himself. So when the salah was over, people came to Ibn Umar and they said, Ibn Umar, did you not say that you saw Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and you prayed behind him in this place 2 rak'ahs? You should have waited for Uthman to finish his prayers and then you come and you pray as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed. Ibn Umar makes a remarkable, profound statement. What does he say? He said, be quiet. He said shortening the prayers is a sunnah. The unity of the Muslims is an obligation. You do not waste an obligation to perform a sunnah. You do not waste an obligation to perform a sunnah. That's what we do every day. We waste major obligations in order to perform sunnahs. We are not saying that the sunnahs are not important, but we are saying that they cannot be at the expense of the obligations. You cannot compromise the obligation for sunnahs. You cannot jeopardize the obligations for the sunnahs. Not acceptable. So there's got to be this maturity. When we choose our battles, and we look into the messengers of Allah, and we look into Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we have got to do this. You know, people have so much appreciation for values. My opinion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I have great faith in humanity. I believe that humans are generally good people. And when they are shown the way, they even become better people. And many times people were attracted to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam so beautifully. You know, when the verses were revealed in Surah An-Nahl, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ وَإِيتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى, that Allah commands people of what? Adl, justice. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ, justice. وَالْإِحْسَانِ, righteousness. وَإِيتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى, and that is being good to your kith and to your kin, treating them with liberality. وَإِنْهَا عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ وَالْبَغِي, and Allah forbids fahsha, you know, open immorality, munkar and baghi, injustice and wickedness. Uthman ibn Maz'un said, when I heard these verses, I said, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, even though he was a Muslim. So the Prophet ﷺ said, what happened? He said, Prophet of Allah, you have previously invited me to Islam, and I said La ilaha illallah because I was just embarrassed. Because you kept talking to me, so I said, okay, fine, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. But he said, this statement is so beautiful. Now from the very bottom of my heart, I am saying La ilaha illallah. What does he do? He ran to Abu Talib, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was not a Muslim. And he goes to him and he recites these verses to him. And he said, Abu Talib, isma' ma unzila ala ibn akhi. Listen to what has been revealed to your nephew. Beautiful verses. And he read it to him, hoping that it will have a similar impact on him. Abu Talib heard the verses and he said, اتبعوا محمدا تفلحوا اتبعوا محمدا ترشدوا فوالله لو لم يكن هذا دين فإنه في خلق الناس حسن. He said, people, follow Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you become prosperous. Follow Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, for he respects your intellect. He said, even if he is telling us lies and he's fabricating this, and this is really not a religion, he said, these are good principles and values to live by. That even if you choose to say that he is fake, he said, what he teaches is good. Follow Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, and you become prosperous. What do we want? We want to be engaged in reality. Many social ills that are out there, by which we can tell people about Islam, and by which we can also aid and help in the betterment of our fellow human brothers and sisters. Why don't we engage ourselves in campaigns? Campaigns against drugs. Drugs are consuming our children, young boys and girls, be they Muslims or non-Muslims, where they're being wasted. Why can't we as a Muslim community say, by the way of the teachings of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he taught that khamr is al khaba'ith, that all forms of intoxicants, they are the mother of all evils. He said, out of this, the Muslim community is hereby holding a campaign against drug and alcoholism. Why can't we do this? Why can't we say, the teachings of Islam are so good, we want it for you as well? When Islam speaks about, how we feel about alcohol and how we feel about this, and these are great. These are great values. I had one time a sister, she came to the masjid and she took her shahada. And I said, we all like to hear how do people become Muslims, because it's very inspiring. And sometimes our brothers and sisters who decide to come back to Islam, sometimes they see in Islam things that we really don't see, because we take them for granted. So this sister, I said, well, what happened? How come you became a Muslim? What happened to you? She said, in my company there is a Muslim man. During Christmas time in the States, the company sometimes decides to give people gifts. Sometimes they give them money, sometimes they give them all sorts of gifts. And sometimes the company decides to give everybody champagne. Or they will have lots of champagne and they'll just give it to people. So she said, this man, he had this look on his face. He was so worried. I came to him because he just did not look very good. And I said, what happened to you? And he said, I am afraid of the champagne. So what do you mean? He said, I have never touched champagne in my life. I am a Muslim. We are not even allowed to touch champagne. I don't want the company to give me any champagne. She said, what do you mean? He said, we're not allowed. She said, you mean you have never had any alcohol in your life? He said, never. If they give you the champagne, you're not going to take it? He said, never ever. She said, I want to see this religion. I want to look into it. And she started reading about Islam.